Of course, at this point, we anticipate kickback because it comes with everything you try and do in this world. And some of the things that are going to come is that first question, well, who the heck does he think he is? One guy, what's he doing? And, I would reply that just because many Bible translations and versions are typically done by committees, large groups, and people who are superior in education, there have been translations and versions that have been produced by individuals. Erasmus, and I'm no Erasmus, but he did it. Tyndale, Coverdale, Luther, all did it on their own. They didn't think it was evil to take the text as it had been translated before and repurpose it. I would also suggest that it's not having a PhD is not requisite. The guys who wrote it, the apostles, didn't have PhDs. So if the guys who wrote it didn't have them, I think the guys who also bring it forward don't have to have them. We're going to take all the biblical scholarship already done, and we're going to use it to create an even better transversion through the use of a proprietary one-of-a-kind formatting, which I'm going to explain to you after the third video. More on that in a second. So the next accusation that is going to sound really sinister when it flies out of the mouth of people will be, he's creating his own Bible to support his own views. And first of all, every Bible version that I have ever read as a Christian, and even before, that has a commentary is guilty of that very thing. I mean, every time I read one, you see something, it'll say the Trinity is this, and every time hell is eternal, and someone else says, if you're a Christian, you should be doing this. They insert their commentary all the time without any problem. This criticism will come up. And, they twist the bias on the Godhead. They twist the bias on eternal punishment. They twist and bias positions of the unsaved. And they twist their views on election and on eschatology, of course. So I'm not alone in this. Where I am alone is that I don't see the scriptures supporting all the man-made traditions. And so I will not include man-made traditions. This transversion of the Apostolic Record will merely point out what Scripture says, what it says. And that's what I'm going to be doing. You're going to see that we're going to be referring to something called point-outs. We're going to point this out. Did you notice? Did you notice this? This is what it says, all through it. So people can read what it says instead of what people have traditionally taught us that it's supposed to say. This is going to terrify the dogmatists. They're going to be frightened by this because they want their dogma known. And when you just look at the text and don't read into it and just say, what does that say over and over and over again, it will really become a powerful tool for people who are trying to understand it. The record will serve the reasonable, the loving, those who read in context through the description, prescription, the adoption, and the restrictive text. We also suspect doing this that some are going to say he's trying to be another Joseph Smith who produced his own inspired version known as the JST because I was once a Mormon. I'm not doing this because Smith did it in any way. I am doing it for the same reason the creators of the ESV created the ESV and the NIV and the NASB and the ASV and the Message and all those other versions do it. I see a tremendous need. I really do. One that has never been done before in our day and age or before, and it's needed now more than ever. So additionally, Smith translated passages based on what was called direct revelation from God. That's why they called Smith's Bible the inspired version. He looked at, he said, no, this is what you want to write, right? I am going to use the Greek. I'm going to stand on the broad shoulders of godly men and women who have analyzed and reanalyzed manuscript evidence, and I will use their findings to convey what the Bible actually says and not what I want it to say.
So I want to point out that what he's talking about is not actually a translation. It is more or less like a commentary that he is going to be imposing onto the Bible. It's actually different than all of the translations that he listed, except for maybe the Message, because what he is doing is that he has said, I'm leaning on the shoulders of those who have done the work. Now, that depends. Whose shoulders? You see, his translation is going to be no different than the New World Translation of the Jehovah's Witnesses or the JST that he pointed out. And the reason why it's not going to be any different is because he is not doing a translation. He is not going to the original manuscripts. He is not doing the textual criticism. He is not deciding which, is the best and most likely rendering of the original text. He is not trying to translate word for word from the Greek into the English. He is trying to convey what he believes the text is saying, meaning he is going to do the interpreting for you. And so, just like the Jehovah's Witnesses, who said that in the beginning was the Word and the Word was a God in their translation, or, Joseph Smith, who says the God who does not justify the ungodly, he is going to be putting his interpretation of the text, and that means that he is going to give you his eschatology, which means that everything has been fulfilled. Jesus came back in AD 70, and so he's calling it the Apostolic Record to differentiate, and he's going to get to this in a moment, but he's calling it the Apostolic Record so that you don't think of it as relevant to our age. And then you're going to look at his notes, and he's going to tell you, and even subliminally how he's going to describe later in the text, what you should pay attention to and what you should not. And that makes him the master interpreter of the Scripture, and his translation is the way of looking at Scripture. So it's actually going to accomplish the opposite of what he is claiming that it will. And I just wanted to point that out.